All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me today to Social Digs. Your boy, Mr. Rob G. Yeah, it's been a minute, but we're right back here. First of all, it's been a little over a week since we did the last show, and since then we had a lot of new people come aboard. So first of all, definitely want to just thank the new people that have come aboard, decided to hit that subscribe button. I know we have some people. Actually, let me give a shout out to Angela G. We spoke one-on-one after she subscribed, and so shout out to Angela G. We also have some new subscribers from the skywatching community, so that's pretty exciting. I know we'll be getting into talking about skywatching and just different scenarios. Actually, I'm totally into skywatching, as you may know. My sighting kind of opened me up to looking up a lot more. So yeah, glad to definitely have you guys aboard. Totally appreciate it. If you're not catching me now and you catch me on Team Replay, definitely drop a comment and tell me what you think about today's show, anything that you may want to do a little different. And I guess what we're going to do, we're not going to be here too long, maybe about an hour. So let's jump right into it. First thing we have today, and what we'll always start off with, is disclosure news. And let's see here. It's been a lot of things going on this week, as you may well know. First of all, the first story that we want to kind of get into looking at is, did anyone hear about I'm sure you heard about the China balloon, the Chinese spy balloon? What do you guys think about that? What do you think about that? I mean, if you ask me, with the UAP report that had come out and discussing balloon-like entities, and then to, off the back of that, have the Chinese balloon drone just all of a sudden, okay, now you have that. So are we tying those two things together, or what are we doing? I think that was kind of like a misdirection, saying, hey, we're seeing balloon-related entities, and then boom, here we go. Here's a balloon. It's a China spy drone. So I think what they're trying to do is kind of take the misdirection and kind of take our eye off of the prize. Let me check something here, as I'm looking, and just want to make sure that we're not frozen here. Give me 1 second here. Let me check our YouTube feed. Okay, no, looks like we're good to go. Okay, so let's jump into it. So, yeah, disclosure news. We're talking about the Chinese UAP, or the Chinese balloon. The UAP misdirection is what we'll call it. Let me go ahead and play a clip in case you're not up on what was going on with that. Here we go.
Go! Boom! And then witnesses watched it slowly plummet down into the ocean. The operation required shutting down commercial air traffic from at least 3 different airports across the Carolinas. You can see here the empty airspace that created. President Biden was then quick to announce the operation. But there are still questions about why it took so long to take action and what it could mean for relations between the world's 2 largest superpowers, the U.S. and China. We're going to get into all of that today, but we begin with Ryan Nobles on how it all went down. Here we go. Boom!
A dramatic moment caught on camera off the coast of South Carolina.
Oh my gosh, it's going straight for it.
By 2:39, U.S. fighter jets took down a Chinese spy balloon that had been making its way across American airspace over the past several days. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin saying the operation was conducted by fighter aircraft from the U.S. Northern Command above U.S. territorial waters. They were seen circling the balloon as it made its way over the ocean. A senior U.S. defense official says the balloon was shot down by a single F-22 with one air-to-air missile. The F-22 flying at approximately 58,000 feet, while the balloon was at an altitude between 60 and 65,000 feet. Eventually, a poof of smoke before the object appears to fall from the sky. The balloon expected to land in the Atlantic Ocean, where it can be collected for military analysis. President Joe Biden, who was under pressure from Republicans to take the balloon down, said he ordered the mission days ago.
On Wednesday, when I was briefed on the balloon, I ordered the Pentagon to shoot it down on Wednesday as soon as possible. They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was as it got over water outside within the 12-mile limit.
The balloon was spotted all over the country after it was discovered earlier this week. Today, people seeing it outside their windows on airplanes.
Chinese spy balloon, according to the pilot, is right there.
And from the ground with the naked eye, like Jeremy Austin in Asheville, North Carolina.
And there it was, right outside of our building. Big white balloon, very recognizable, very obvious to plain view and plain sight, but pretty interesting.
But as the military operation ramped up, the FAA stopped air traffic at 3 airports on the North and South Carolina coast.
Okay, is this do we got airspace shut down today? Yeah, we just got a FCC modem. There's going to be a TFR next update until 1945 with national security.
All in anticipation of this moment. Boom! This particular incident now resolved, but the geopolitical implications still unknown.
And Ryan Nobles is at the White House. Ryan, with the balloon shot down, what happens with it now?
Jose, according to a senior U.S. military official, the recovery effort there is already underway. There are Navy and Coast Guard vessels in the region creating a security perimeter. The debris is believed to be in 47 feet of water, and recovery should be quick. Jose?
Ryan Nobles at the White House, thank you. Let's bring in Jeremy Bash, the former chief of staff at the CIA and Department of Defense. Jeremy, so the U.S. military shot it down. Now they're going to retrieve it. What could they get from the balloon itself?
Well, the intelligence community, Jose, will analyze the radars, the cameras, the communications equipment, how the propulsion system works. They're hoping to learn exactly how this overhead balloon operates so they can potentially defend it against something like this in the future.
Was this not only a spy balloon, but also a trial balloon? Was this the Chinese testing how far they could go?
Yeah, I think China fielded this capability in part to figure out where they could operate this balloon, how long it would go undetected, and ultimately what the United States would do about it. I think in the future, we're going to need the capability to bring down a balloon like this over land. We can't wait for it to traverse the entire United States and wait for it to get out over the ocean.
What does this mean for U.S.-China relations?
Well, the relationship between the U.S. and China is in a pretty bad state, and I think this is only going to worsen it, Jose. This is going to be a momentary crisis, but I think there's a lingering issue, which is that we are in a deep competition with China, and this is going to only exacerbate it.
Jeremy Bash, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
All right. So what do you think about that? I mean, what is your view on the China balloon? Do you think it was just a one-off situation where we just happened to catch a Chinese drone flying across the United States? What do you think about that? I'll tell you how I feel. Let me see if we got anybody that'll chime in. Anybody, don't be afraid. Go ahead and chime in. Say what you want to say here. What is your view on that? Because I'll tell you what I think. I think, like I stated earlier, that the UAP report that was released, and this is just my speculation, obviously, but with the UAP report being released, they mentioned balloon-like entities. Okay, so this is the first time they ever bring that up or even use the term, and then coincidentally, right off the heels of that, we have crystal clear picture of a Chinese drone flying over the United States. I think that's kind of peculiar, and I think is misdirection. I think they're kind of trying to take our eyes off the fact that there are things out there that are anomalous, but they're saying, hey, okay, well, look, we're showing you it's a balloon. So next time you see something like this, we want you to automatically assume that you're seeing a balloon or some sort of terrestrial explanation. So I think that that's really not I think if you look at it clear or deeper, then it becomes more clear of what this is. I just don't think that the Chinese would send a drone over the United States knowing that we're going to find it, knowing that we're going to shoot it down. So I think this is truthfully just some sort of misdirection. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, you could drop a comment and tell me what you think about it. But on to other news, we have, which I just actually found today. I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but let me bring up this article I found about Putin. So I guess Putin was giving some sort of nuclear speech, and at the time that he did that, uh, apparently there was a UAP that hovered over the event. Don't know how true this is, but I'm gonna go ahead and bring this story up, and we'll go through it together. And let's see, let's share that. All right, let me see, is it showing up? Okay, yeah, here we go. So let me go ahead and read through this with you guys. Make this full screen. All right, so UFO was allegedly spotted hovering over a Russian city at the same time Vladimir Putin was visiting the city to give an address about nuclear weapons, and the West, Radar Online has learned. If you can see, I don't know if you can see a picture of apparently this is a picture of it here. So let's go ahead and move on. The surprising incident took place on Thursday, February 2nd in the Russian city of Volgograd. I guess this is another image of it here. All right. According to the Daily Star, at least 2 Russian planes traveling past Volgograd on Thursday afternoon spotted the unidentified flying object changing color, altitude, and general direction. Although the incident was immediately reported to Russia's aviation authorities, the Kremlin has not commented on the matter, and the mystery aircraft is still yet to be identified. The crew of an Airbus A321 of S7 Airlines operating flight S72046 from Sochi to Moscow 12 minutes before reaching Volgograd at an altitude of 10,000 meters reported that they observed an unidentified object at right angles to the plane on the left side, the aviator Sheena reported. Oh, let me see. Is this a video? No. Okay. All right, the object was changing color. I guess we can take a look at this here if it'll play. Let me get this here. All right. The object was changing color and height in the direction of movement. The report continued. The competent authorities have been notified since no flight plans were provided in the specified area at the time. Permission to use the airspace was not issued, they added. As RadarOnline.com previously reported, the UFO was spotted in Volgograd at the same time Putin was visiting Volgograd, formerly Stalingrad, to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Russia's Battle of Stalingrad against Nazi Germany in World War II. The sightings of the unidentified flying object reportedly took place at approximately 4:08 p.m. local time, and Putin was said to have arrived in the city only 3 hours earlier. Even more shocking is the fact that this was not the first time an alleged UFO had been sighted since Putin's forces first invaded Ukraine nearly 12 months ago on February 24th, 2022. As RadarOnline.com reported in January, another alleged UFO was spotted in southern Russia last month before the nation's anti-aircraft missiles shot the unidentified flying object down. Described as a small-sized object in the shape of a ball, that alleged UFO was spotted on the Rostov Oblast region of Russia, located just miles from the Russia-Ukrainian border. Now, I remember hearing about that where they stated they had shot down a small UAP, and then you have this incident here, and I guess this story just came out today. Yeah, 6 hours ago here on radaronline.com. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video that's part of this here, if it has any audio. Let's see here. Okay, I mean, so what do you guys think about that? That's pretty crazy, right? So you have Putin giving a speech on nuclear weapons, and UAP show up on the scene. Now they've always said that UAP were interested in nuclear weapons, and that was the sole reason why they were here. So what do you think about that? I mean, it's kind of crazy that would happen. Although, like I stated, they say they've been here for that reason, and maybe this is one other thing or one thing we can write down in the book to kind of further solidify the fact that, hey, maybe they are here for peaceful reasons. Maybe they are here to stop nuclear war or stop the potential of nuclear war. And I'm here for that. I mean, if that's, if that's what they're here for, I would rather that be the case than obviously what the alternative could be. So moving on, we're going to go to the meat of today's stream, and that is really kind of just going over NASA, SpaceX, and the connection to UAP. So let me go ahead and bring up some information on that here. All right, so good old NASA. Never a straight answer, right? That's what most people say. Never a straight answer. Then you have SpaceX, who has taken on the reins to take us further out into space, potentially Mars. They're talking the moon, obviously, with the Artemis rocket gonna go there. So, there's also things that they haven't told us. There's things behind the scenes where you have had astronauts who have gone into space and said that they've seen things only to come back and get debriefed, and then obviously NASA tells them that they can't speak about it at that point. So tough situation, you know what I mean? But I have a few examples, because a lot of the people that are into ufology and who watch ufology type podcasts already have a deep knowledge of the events that have gone on or the history of ufology. However, we have new people, young people, and just truthfully people who never really embraced the subject, who never thought to think that UAP were real, are now coming in to find out the history. So I think it'd be good to kind of go over some of those things. And one of the first things that I had here is, bring up my notes here. Okay, and I think you guys can hear that. Let me 1 second here. Okay. All right. Back. So, okay. So we have astronaut John Glenn here, World War II hero known for performing at 11:03. Glenn steps onto a rocket. And actually, when it went into orbit, he saw what he described as fireflies outside the window. Now, I looked at this. This ended up being debunked as ice particles. But what you're going to find out is for every incident that happens, there is going to be some sort of explanation that they give to try to debunk the situation. So, but just the history. This is 1962. So we're talking 7 years prior to Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, or actually, yeah, I guess Buzz also stepped on the moon, our first people to step on the moon. This would have been one of the Gemini flights. So we have his incident where he sees these fireflies that were actually end up being debunked as ice crystals. Then we go on to June 3rd, 1965. You had Gemini 4, and you had astronauts Ed White and James McDivitt. So they go up. McDivitt sees an object outside the craft. There is a voice recording of this conversation, and according to what was said, McDivitt says that he had observed some sort of object flying past the window that seemed to have mechanical arms sticking out. Okay. So they're in space for a few days. I guess June 7th, they end up coming back 4 days after they launched. And McDivitt says the object wasn't shown on any of the images. No one knows for sure what it was. Could it have been ET? Then you have Gemini 7, December 4th, 1965. You have Frank Norman, Jim Lovell, of course, from the other fateful Apollo mission. And they notice, and I heard this on the voice recording. Obviously, I won't play it. We've been getting copyright strikes lately. They had a voice recording talking about a sighting. He calls it a bogey. Some say it was a booster from the rocket and other debris. However, Lovell actually stated that he could still see the booster. So this has to be something else. So what do you think it was? I mean, obviously it had to be some sort of unidentified object. If you have the astronaut going up, he knows what the booster looks like, obviously. And he just reported this to NASA, and NASA obviously did what they do best, went ahead, covered that up. We never found out about it. This happened to come out. You go forward. We have Gemini 11. So you had Pete Conrad, Richard Jordan, astronauts. They attempted to dock with the spacecraft. They ended up docking. And when they did, they saw this bright shape, this shape shifting object. They were able to take pictures as it passed the window. Some say it was a Russian satellite. However, the Russian satellite, in fact, was actually thousands of miles away at the time. So there was no way that it could possibly be it. But go ahead, take a look. This is the object they took a picture of. This is supposed to have been the shape shifting object. And this is just what 3 or 4 astronaut flights into our space program, and each time they go, essentially they're seeing these things in the skies or in space. So jumping from there, we have one of the more famous flights, Apollo 11. So you had Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin. Now, after successfully launching into orbit with the world watching, after 3 days into the trip, they see a flashing object. Neil Armstrong radios mission control. He asks if it's part of the Saturn V rocket. Really not wanting to kind of discuss this on live TV to, didn't want to freak out the people. He asks if it's Saturn V rocket. They don't say anything about it at the time while they're live. And then reportedly, Aldrin, which I'll show you here in a minute, actually ended up admitting to seeing extraterrestrial during the trip. So here's Buzz Aldrin saying this. Now they did go. Well, he ended up, I guess, taking back what he said or saying that it was taken out of context. That the show that he appeared on when he made this statement, they edited it into a way where it appeared like he was out.
60 seconds.
I saw this illumination that was moving with respect to the stars. We were smart enough to not say, Houston, there's a light out there that's following us. So technically, it becomes an unidentified flying object.
Okay, so yeah, so that was him talking about seeing a UFO in space. Now, he ended up going back and I guess stating that this never happened, or his statement was taken out of context. I'm sorry. I don't know. I mean, that I think that if you look at that clip, I mean, he clearly says what he says. I know that I've been in situations where I've been on or a part of shows that have edited things out and they can make things seem a certain way, but the story was after this, he ended up taking a lie detector test and passing, saying that what he said was true. So what they do is they put enough information out there, enough opposing information out there to cloud up the whole thing. So now he's dead and gone at this point. We can't ask him or probe him for this information. And now we're just left with a video confession stating that he saw UFOs and then a report stating that no, he said that this was taken out of context. So once again, a cloudy situation that NASA is involved in. Let's go ahead and move on. And then, mind you, during this whole time, we had the whole active UFO program starting from Roswell. You know, at this point, it's 1969 when they take the flight to the moon. So it's a good 7 years in between the first astronaut going up into space and then the first one landing foot on the moon. And with the UFO report, Project Blue Book, the Condon report came out in 68, basically stating there's nothing to see here, which is a year before they went to the moon. So you just kind of start to see how the situation is sticky and how from the beginning there's been some sort of like a convoluted, like a cover-up almost, I'd say. So taking a look at this, just moving on, we have astronaut Edgar Mitchell. I'm sure people familiar with ufology know exactly who Edgar Mitchell is. And let me see what we have for him. This is Edgar Mitchell, if I can bring him in. Yeah, this is astronaut Edgar Mitchell. I have some clips where he actually was talking. Let me see if I can find that here. It's the STS. Okay. No, that's not it. All right. Let me go back. Okay. Well, let me just read this off here because Edgar Mitchell, few notes about the gentleman. He's best known for typing in 80 lines of code to save the entire Apollo 14 mission, which he was a part of, that descended to the moon in 1971. He also claimed the top military officials had hidden evidence of UFOs, potentially alien spacecraft, and that they were particularly fond of hovering over White Sands testing range in New Mexico. So this is a quote from Edgar Mitchell here. He says, from looking at Earth from space, you come up with the question, who are we? How did we get here? Where's all this going? And that's an ancient question that humans have asked for a long time. He says, my experience was to realize that perhaps our science is wrong at answering these questions, and perhaps our religious cosmologies are archaic and flawed. And given that now we are an extraterrestrial civilization ourselves, we need to re-ask these questions and do a lot more work to find the answers. And this is a quote from Edgar Mitchell. So I don't believe he actually ever stated that he saw anything in space, but more so that he is just had a belief that extraterrestrials existed. So moving on, we have September 1973. So there was a Skylab where the astronauts were actually, hanging out in anti-gravity and doing all sorts of tests and experiments in orbit. And they ended up seeing a bright red light. And I actually have a picture of that here, which is going to be here. So I guess these are the actual pictures that they took 1973 from a Skylab, and they saw these red lights shape shifting from the shape you see on the left to the shape you see on the right, or vice versa. So next we have STS-48 space shuttle mission, September 15th, 1991. So orbiting the Earth somewhere in Australia, and we'll go ahead, I'm gonna get a video for it coming up here. The STS-48 shuttle mission orbiting Earth somewhere over Australia. They see an object flash, then change directions. I love this video here too. You'll see in a minute. Now, what in space could change directions like that? Let me run that, and then you'll see what we're talking about here. So this would be the video STS-48. So this is September 15, 1991. See the UAP moving to the left. Watch it abruptly change direction, and then the projectile comes out. This is a famous video that I'm sure a lot of people have seen if you know anything about ufology. So the question is, what is the UAP? Okay, this is how I would position it, me looking at this. So what is the object that shoot towards it? Is it just a coincidence that something comes in frame near the object as it moves away? Was it anti-UFO weapons fired from the ground, possibly? Would that show that we actually have attempted to shoot down anomalous craft? They try to write it off as ice and then being blown off the other direction by some from the gases from the shuttle. But it's a coincidence to me. It's too coincidental that you have a projectile, what looks to be a projectile. It looks like it's simply getting out the way. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. And it's exhibiting technically one of the 5 observables. So if we go by that rule, then that makes this anomalous on its own. So moving on, we have February 25th, 1996, the Columbia shuttle mission STS-75 incident, where you probably recall this as well, where astronauts lost control of basically a 13-mile length tether. And I think we can take a look at what that looked like from their video. Apparently, they lost control of it. They drifted off into space. They continued to film it. And as they did that, these things, as you see in the frame here, ended up showing up in once again, this looks pretty crazy, looks pretty creepy. If those would be UAP, then it's pretty amazing how, with the amount that there are, and why they'd be focused on this object. However, this would be something that debunkers across the board would look at and just explain off as a trick of the camera, basically, with small item or small things in the frame actually closer to the camera. That tether you're looking at is 13 miles long, so it's way out there at this point. And if you were to assume that these things were where that, where the tether is, you could assume that they'd be huge. But they're trying to say that they're, close to the camera, debris. I mean, and the thing is like, how can you even argue that? Because we unfortunately don't have a way of getting up there to test that out. with our own cameras. So once again, another incident caught on camera in space related to NASA that gets explained away. There hasn't been one, I don't think, yet that we've gone across here that has not been explained away by NASA. But let's go ahead and move on. We do have shuttle flight STS-80. So STS-80, the video captures objects that seem to just appear coming up from the clouds. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So these images, these objects were actually just popping up on film. This is a shuttle orbiting the Earth at the time. Like I said, they appear to be coming up from the clouds and kind of just appearing. They're blinking. What do you think? I mean, it's kind of crazy. If I were to look at this, I don't know if I go with their explanation. The explanation that they gave for this is small tumbling objects reflecting sunlight. Now, I know objects do tumble in space, and depending on what side is showing, is going to reflect more light. So that makes sense. But you can't make that the answer every time. And I kind of think that they get just like with the government explaining away UFOs is swamp gas or weather balloons. Like, you have your set things to go to, your set list of answers and responses to go to. And I think that was the same thing with NASA. I mean, if you look at all the cases and then the explanations, you can see it. They're playing out of the same playbook. So moving on, we have STS-115. So that was September 2006. They had the camera focused on the booster of the shuttle once it had disconnected, was falling back to Earth. The camera was focused on that booster, and then ended up catching a weird image in the frame. So let's take a look at that and see what they saw. So that's the booster falling back to Earth. I guess this is what they caught in the frame. Weird. The explanation for this one was actually something being shining on the glass from the inside of the shuttle. That could be it. That could be what we're looking at here. Is possible, but it could not be. It could be UAP. So, I don't know. That one's in the air with me. I could go either way on that. I could see how that could be. I don't know though, but when the clouds show up there, it kind of looks like, look again. Does it look like it's on top of the clouds or below the clouds? I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, that could go either way. I mean, if it's below the clouds, obviously it can't be reflection from the window, but then it kind of looks like it could be on top. So I guess I could go with that explanation. But the whole point is that, yeah, maybe this was that this time, but then all the other times that we've had incidents out there in space, or astronauts that have described things, they've been written off as other things. Now, jumping into something else, this is more rumored than anything, and I actually, I don't know how much I buy into this, but let me get the NASA stuff back up here. I don't know how much I buy into this one, but we're going to jump into, do you think that there is, and I actually give this to the viewer, our new subscriber, Angela G from New Zealand. She actually asked the question to me of, do you believe that there is a secret space program? And I kind of lean with, yeah, I really think that there potentially could be a secret space program, only because even with the launching of top secret satellites and just the secret things that the government does just for protection of the country. Um, would you think that they would tell you every time they launched? So, I mean, we have situations where current day, you have people taking videos of things that they think are UAP in the sky that get explained off as, oh, well, we just did a missile test at such and such um, airfield or the military base. And I'm in Bakersfield, California, so I'm not too far from Vandenberg, not too far from Edwards. So, you know, there's a lot of things shot up from Vandenberg, and we often see those things. But are they missiles every time? I mean, or are they sometimes secret payloads that they might be sending off? Is it possible that they are manned missions going out into space? I don't know. I mean, it's something that you have to ask yourself. And like Magneticus says, definitely he's lurking in the shadows like always. But yeah, I mean, looking at that, you have to think about what the ulterior motive is for them not standing behind their astronauts and the numerous sightings that they have. I mean, it's obvious they're there. We had Roswell in 1947. We had what 15, 20 years of UFO sightings before we even sent the first person into space. So if we're seeing them in the sky, we know they're coming in from space. It's obvious they're in space. I mean, you don't really have to think too hard to believe that. But yeah, going into this rumored secret space mission, it was rumored to be an Apollo 20 launch that was supposedly part of a secret launch to go after what was said to be an ET aircraft or ET craft that was on the moon, was later determined to be a hoax. However, is it possible that some of these launches that we see, like I stated before, are actually part of the secret space program? Is it possible that they, if there were such a thing, if there was a base, not saying that there isn't, we don't know, maybe there is, and maybe that is what they're doing. But is it thinkable to think that they would want to take those missions silently, like off the radar? They wouldn't want anyone to know that they were going to do so. And then that kind of leads me into, if you remember, the Israeli prime minister, the one who retired, who said that we had an alliance with the Galactic Federation, and we were going to Mars and having these meetings with these ETs. I mean, so when you look at it, I don't know. I mean, that sounds kind of crazy when you think about it, but at the same time, if we're actively going out there, and if NASA, the secret is that they've been in contact and kind of communicating with these ET, or even in conflict, as you saw with the clip we showed with the projectile coming up at the UAP. Even if we're in conflict with these, if we're in some sort of contact, is it so far off to think that what that prime minister and the Israeli prime minister, what he said, was plausible or not? You know, I don't know. So these are just questions you have to ask yourself. And now we're in the new era, the new dawn, with SpaceX here, who's taken over for NASA. And I think it was about a year ago, they showed a video where the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, it showed a big thing just kind of fly past the window. It was anomalous, but then they said, oh no, that's just ice. So here we go again. So we have Elon, we have a new space program set up, or a new company running the space program, but then we're going back to the same explanations for anomalous activity in space. And the whole thing about it is we can't prove it, so we'll never be able to ourselves debunk their explanation for what we're seeing. And let's get into the fact that obviously there's been many instances of the International Space Station, the cameras shutting off whenever something anomalous happens. So with Bill Nelson stepping in and everybody feeling real good about, NASA's going to tackle UAPs now. Oh, they're going to look into the history of the thing that they've recorded. They're part of the game. They're part of the whole cover up. They're part of the game. Why would they start playing right now or fair now? As you see, what has Bill Nelson delivered up to this point? He came in, he promised that he would look into these files and he would get us the answers that we needed. And here we are a year, 2 years later, no new information from NASA. And I think it's part of the whole kicking the can down the road thing, the same thing. So it's obvious the government is in step with NASA on keeping the secret and keeping everything, pinned up behind closed doors. That's why I don't really pay any close attention to what Elon Musk is doing, or SpaceX or any of these missions out into space, because the truth is they won't tell us everything. We have the Mars rover with cameras, and this is supposed to be open access, so we get to see what it brings in, although we know things get vetted. So do you focus all your time and energy into what they filter to you? That's the question. I think we waste a lot of time doing that, and I think that ends up being the big distraction. I think more of the focus should be us taking all the data that we have, like my sighting, for instance, taking the abductees experience, taking the cattle mutilations, the farmers stories, taking all these things, putting these things together so we can all see together that what we really have going on, which is ETs visiting, abducting, mutilating, and then what for is really what we want to know, and what can we do to make sure that we're in the best possible position to keep ourselves protected and safe. At least open that dialogue and have the conversation with us so we can all together, even with the military and the government, let's all talk and see what it is that we need to do to get through this situation here. But that's me rambling, and let me go ahead and move on. So as far as that goes, so yeah, we got through NASA from the first launch, the first man to win the orbit, 1962. We ended with SpaceX. Oh, no. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say was Elon Musk, to kind of put the cap on that. There was a story, and I can't seem to find it anymore, where Elon Musk, someone has stated a couple months ago, and I saw the video on it, where they stated he had admitted that there were UAP observed following the SpaceX crafts as they have been launching and been launched. So I couldn't find the actual story to that because I really wanted to, kind of talk about that and look at that. But that'd be great if Elon Musk is actually going to, being open about, because he's privately owned company. So he's not tied to the government as far as we know. So getting information like that from him is actually pretty good if that is actually a thing. So, this is at this point, we talked about a lot of stuff. And as far as NASA, SpaceX, the secrets, the cover-ups, if there's anybody out there that had anything to say about it while we're here, go ahead and chime in. If not, just leave them in the comments. So we'll take a look at it and we'll address it on the next show. So moving on, there is a segment that I like to do. Oh, I can't believe I left myself small like that. Okay. There is a segment that I like to do that we're going to do actually pretty often here, which is called Once Upon a Time in Ufology. And then we also have a segment that we'll call Science Fiction to Science Fact. And today, for Once Upon a Time in Ufology, let me see what we have here. I kind of wanted to just go over the aerial school situation. Well, not really just aerial school, but just the subject of UFOs visiting schools, period. You know, we had the aerial school, and then we had the Westall school as well, where at the aerial school, you had 60 kids in broad daylight who saw a UFO land, beings get out the craft. They looked at these beings eye to eye, broad daylight. Multiple children saw this, and these beings communicated something telepathically to these kids. Okay, that, unless you call all the kids liars, which I don't, I watched the aerial school phenomenon with director James Fox, and everyone has said that these kids look like they're telling the truth. I mean, and it's true. So for those who haven't looked into the aerial school and not versed on that, James Fox has a documentary you should definitely check out. And then Westall School, which is, if you ask me, was even more bigger sighting than aerial school. The Westall 66, they had over 200 people. Now we're talking adults and children who actually saw a craft, same sort of situation, broad daylight, saw a craft in the sky, saw a craft land, and I believe in their situation they saw beings as well. So not really to go too deep into that because everybody knows those stories, but for those who are coming aboard who may not be versed with everything that is going on in ufology, that's what this segment is for. Once Upon a Time Ufology will give you something for you to look at. You can go off and research it yourself, educate yourself, and then come back and we all discuss it as a group. Okay, so getting through that, we have, and we'll be changing that up every week as far as something that you should look at. But the final subject that we have, or the final segment, I should say, is Science Fiction to Science Fact Movie Edition. Now, the idea behind this is, like I stated last week, I asked you guys to watch Dark Skies. I don't know if you've done it yet or if you had a chance to do it. But the whole point behind Science Fiction to Science Fact is just, I'll give my own example. So there was a time when I didn't know that UFOs were 100% like here. I had an idea, obviously, that they were real, and I've always been open to them being somewhere in this universe. But in 2017, when the New York Times report came out and Lou Elizondo came out, the videos came out, then it kind of just hit home for me that, wow, these things are actually here. Not only are they real, but they're here. So I went back and watched, since this revelation, I've gone back and watched certain movies that I've seen before. When I originally watched them, I watched them in more of a science fiction sort of mind state. So still great movies, but now that I'm like post, well, it's not really disclosure, but since we're post 2017, when I look at those same movies, they kind of hit a little different. So Dark Skies was one of those, which we talked about last week. This week, the one that I feel hits a little different and you should watch, or just tell me how you feel about it now afterwards, is The Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, really, how could it be any other movie? Steven Spielberg really nailed it on that one. You had Jacques Vallée in there, or a person representing Jacques Vallée, I should say, or playing his character. And there was word that a lot of the ideas in ways that Spielberg decided to go with the movie were due to inside information from potentially someone within the government. So great movie to watch. Go back and watch it. Since I have watched it again, it just trips me out on how accurate everything was. I mean, the orbs. We're talking, this is I think 1977. So 45 years ago this movie was done. And if you look at the UAP, if you look at the way that they move, they were spot on with pretty much everything in the movie. So it tends to make you wonder what else, as far as I don't want to spoil it, but we get to see what the beings look like in the movie. And was this information given to Spielberg as well? Kind of makes me think. And then sidetrack, obviously that's a movie I want you guys to go watch this week. But a side note to that is the way that they said that Spielberg had been tipped off on how these things may behave. I looked at one of the more recent films that have come out on this in this ufology space, which would be the movie Nope. And then I thought, okay, well, Jordan Peele went as far as to make the UFO a living entity, a living thing. And you've heard in a lot of conversations lately how a lot of people feel like these things might be, alive in some way or biological in some way, like however it ends up working out. And then you look at Nope and say, okay, well, why did he choose to go that direction? He could have just simply made a spaceship with aliens inside and took that route. But was he in the same situation? Was he given some heads up on a way to go with the picture to kind of give us some more of that slow drip disclosure? I don't know. Kind of makes you think. But yeah, so that's gonna be it. We'll be doing that every week. So I think it'll, we'll end up having some fun with it. I have a few more ideas on implementing to the show. Got a great idea for this coming Friday. So definitely be there. I think Mateo will be back this Friday as well. I've been talking to him behind the scenes, and Tim Seymour, who always jumps in and out, he's always welcome. You never know when you'll see him here. But with that said, I think I only intended on doing an hour, and actually we're running right up on 59 minutes. So we kind of timed it right. Exactly what I wanted to do today. And so I'm just going to leave it open. I was hoping to get, we had a lot of new subscribers actually over the last week. So we had, at least 15 to 20 new subscribers that came on board. And it's kind of my fault because I ended up pushing this stream back a couple times. But this Friday, hopefully we can get them all there and we'll have a great conversation. We'll talk about some other things. But being that I'm here by myself today, it's been great doing this, kind of breaking the ice off for me on the solo thing, when hosting the show on my own, which obviously I'll be doing from time to time. And yeah, so that's where we're at. So let me see here. I don't think I have anything else, and I'm definitely going to keep it at an hour. So I want to thank everybody who came out here today. Magneticus, is 100 with you, and I want to do something with you too. So we'll talk offline and get something going there. And anyone else who's out there, anyone else who sees this on Team Rewatch, make sure you come and join us on the live shows. We'll for sure be doing these things every Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then I know we have overseas people too. Please leave me a comment and tell me what's the best time for you guys. Because sometimes I'm thinking about doing some shows on the weekends. And I'm down definitely to go early as I need to. So just let me know, and then we'll go ahead. We'll get this thing going right. And yeah, thanks for coming along for the ride today. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care. And let me get out of here with my outro. Later, guys.